You guys just about ready?
We're ready.
We're ready. Okay, call the meeting of the Wareham Board of Selectmen for July 14th, 2020 to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
There are 4 selectmen present, Mr. Slavin, Ms. Whiteside, Mr. Muniz, Mr. Titlebaum. Also present is Town Administrator, Mr. Sullivan.
Yes, Town Council wouldn't be with us tonight. He had another engagement in his other town.
Thank you.
Pledge of Allegiance. Mrs. Slavin. Okay, announcements. Does anybody have any?
No.
Alan, you got anything?
I have a couple.
Okay.
There's been a lot of chatter about Don't Trash Wareham. As a founding member of Don't Trash Wareham, I just want to let the public know that Don't Trash Wareham really appreciates all the offers of cash donations or thing donations. We do not take those kinds of donations. So the only thing that we would love to have you do, and we'd love to have you do it, is adopt a road or a portion of the road and do your volunteering that way. And again, thank you very much for the offers. The other thing we talked about this before, but Wareham has only responded, 51% of the citizens in Wareham responded to the census. I think I responded to it the day I got it, and it asks you who's living in the house, their ages, and one other question. You're not selling your grandmother, you're not giving away state secrets, but what we are doing, if we are not returning the census, we are losing out on federal money that is divided among all the different respondents. So I would urge people to go online and answer it. If you can't get online, go to your neighbor's house or something, but it's very, very simple to do. Thank you.
Okay, Selectman Manise? You got to bring the mic a little closer.
Under announcements, that means that things upcoming, kind of, right? And,
Yep.
no, I'm gonna pass.
Okay. Just a reminder that we've already had positive triple E tests, and I also understand positive West Nile tests in mosquitoes. So everybody needs to go back to what we were doing last year, which is whenever you go out at dawn or dusk, or if you're in a wet environment where there's a lot of mosquitoes, start spraying yourself with mosquito repellent. Wear long clothing at dusk, things like that, to avoid getting bitten by the mosquitoes. I know it's tough. We've got some other plague on our mind at the moment that's dominating the airwaves and your lives, but this is around too, so please take precautions so that we don't have anybody get sick or lose anybody. Thank you. Citizens' comments.
Just a comment on the Triple E, et cetera. I mentioned it last week. The months of July and August are the months of the highest chance of getting Triple E. West Wareham and Rochester are in what they call the critical zone. So people need to be very careful. It's not a joke.
Yep.
May I just make one more comment? For those of you who may or may not see these, we actually have plexiglass between ourselves. It's not visible on TV. But we do want to make sure that you understand that from time to time, it's really hot under these masks, and we may back up and do this. But we are certainly paying attention to the rules as set forth. But we are taking all of the precautions that we can. People who come here to speak, there's hand sanitizer, et cetera.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Citizens' comments. Mrs. Slavin? Welcome back. It's been a while.
Move over one, too close.
Did you miss me?
Too close. Thank you.
Yeah, right. Sandy Slavin, and it was hard not to talk on citizens' participation when everybody was on Zoom.
Yep.
Alan made sure I stayed in my chair and didn't come to the machine. Okay, here I am. Last week, I listened to the selectmen at home. I couldn't hear everybody. You must lean forward into that device. Speak slowly to make your point or questions or comments, but it was awful hard. And I know several of you were getting messages, text messages during the meeting that says, I can't hear you. So it's just slow and into the device. Number 2, we had a sewer spill. It's called deragging. Certain materials should not be flushed. Baby wipes, disinfectant wipes, tampons, they all go in and clog the machine down there. It can't flow through. So please seriously consider what you put in your toilet that is not biodegradable and causes backups like we had at Onset. And the third comment, a couple weeks ago, Conservation Commission lost a longtime member. Kenny Baptiste was killed in a motorcycle accident. It hurts us immensely to have a meeting without him because he's been there long time. I'm putting a plea out there for anybody who cares about the environment in the town of Wareham. We are short members. We are missing a full-time member. We are missing 3 associates. We have an associate who will be retiring, backing down because he now has a full-time job. So we're missing 1 member and 3 associates. So please, we meet on the 1st and 3rd Wednesday at 6 o'clock for normally about 2 hours, and we're doing Zoom, and we think we'll be doing Zoom for a while. So please, if you care about the environment, consider going onto the town website, filling out a application, and submit it.
Yep.
And that was my 3 things.
Great.
And
Thank you.
glad to be back in front of you.
Yes. Okay. Board comments. Alan?
First off, the governor changed, I believe it was yesterday, for grocery stores. They took away the capacity orders, so basically the stores will no longer have to wait to get in. They also dropped, under the executive order of the governor, you now can do reusable bags, and the plastic bag ban that different cities and towns had, I believe it was somewhere in 140 or so towns and cities had passed. It now goes back into effect again. I've got a bunch of other things, but the other thing I won't get into detail-wise because it's not really on our plate. I have been talking with the school superintendent every Monday morning, and actually every morning I've been helping out as my wife has with Meals on Wheels, and Kim comes in at 8 o'clock every morning and works for a half hour as well, which I think is pretty neat for someone as busy as she is. I gave her some information today that we came down through the governor and the MMA, and she gave me a figure what the cost increases are going to be in order to comply with any one of the 3 different options for the schools. I'll let the school committee deal with it, but the increase in number is somewhere in the area of, I would say 10 to actually about 18% of their budget increase, which I have no idea how anybody's going to pay for it.
Okay. Clerk Whiteside?
I'm all set, thank you.
Selectman Manise?
I think I'll piggyback on Mrs. Slavin's call for committee members. Take a look what's online and what's open, and you know, if there's anything you're interested in, you can apply online. If you utilize the link through the Selectmen's office, the Selectmen's webpage, you can autofill online. There was a disconnect between the two applications for that use, so if you want to just do it online, go through the Selectmen's office and take a look, and please consider stepping up. And I didn't realize that the Conservation Commission was down to as many members as they were. I thought they were finally kind of catching up, but it sounds, unfortunately, with the passing of Kenny, and a new member is it a new member who's resigning? Yeah, that's too bad. Also, we had someone forwarded me a editorial about the transfer station, or what the town is going to do related to solid waste disposal. So just, if everybody just would understand that we're working on a lot of different things, and including possible transfer station, possible a bid for curbside pickup. That would probably have to go in front of the town meeting body to approve it, I would think. And so we're working on stuff, and please don't panic, and we won't leave you hanging. We'll have something. Either would continue some sort of a transfer station, and you can do your private hauling as it is right now until we did get something in place that would be more permanent. Thank you.
Yes, and further in that regard, I did consult with Selectman Manise, and going forward, starting next week, this issue is going to be a weekly agenda item for all of our meetings. It's going to stay on there until we've arrived at some kind of a solution here. I think it's imperative that it stays right under our nose right until we figure it out. I don't think I have any comments myself. Next up.
Next up, we have appointments or reappointments and interviews. The first one we have is the Community Events Committee for Alan H. Slavin, which would be a re-up
Okay.
for
I
an
assume,
appointment then to expire no later than May 5th, 2021.
Let's ask if he wants to keep doing it.
Yeah, it's a requirement of the article that was passed at town meeting, and actually was put into place by the House and Senate, because it takes tax money and has a special fund that it's dedicated to. So this is something which we basically have 5 members, and it was set up by Jimmy Potter, and one of the members was one of the members of the Board of Selectmen. But as such, we have to redo it every year, as they do with the, basically, the redevelopment authority. And I think, Jim, I think one of the committees you're on as a voting member. Affordable Housing Trust or something like that?
Affordable
It
housing.
says 2-year terms
Okay,
for the affordable. I sent that to Mrs. Slavin.
that's good, because usually it's a year, so that's a little different, just so we know.
I think the redevelopment authority says, not the redevelopment, the CMW, the Solid Waste Committee is, I think we're appointed for 3-year terms.
Those are 3.
So I did check that. I mean, if there's something in the Mass General laws which is contrary.
No. No, there's nothing.
I think it's a great idea to keep Mr. Slavin there. He's been there for a while. Yes, it is. But I move that we reappoint Alan H. Slavin, 36 Oak Street, Wareham, Mass., to a term that expires no later than May 5th, 2021, to the Community Events Committee.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Clerk Whiteside, seconded by Selectman Manise. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. It is 3-0-1, with Selectman Slavin abstaining. Okay, next up is the Charter Review Group. I'll let Selectman Whiteside speak to this and why these people are the ones who are interested in continuing on with the work that was started by the Charter Review Committee that was folded up by operation of law back in May.
May 20th.
Once we were done. So,
Thank you. The Charter Review Group submitted 3 articles to we'll call it the April town meeting. And because that meeting was truncated in terms of what was put before the body, the articles did not come before the body. I've spoken with Mr. Titlebaum about getting them onto the next town meeting warrant, and I believe that you all were familiar with those articles at the time. A couple of the things that the group would like to continue to do is to reformat the charter itself. We all felt that reading run-on sentences really wasn't helpful. So that in terms of clarity and conciseness, the entire document has been retyped. We also have some suggestions that will be brought forward at a future town meeting. We didn't have time to get to them. But they include moving all of the boldface stuff that's in the charter to a back page as an appendix, so that the information about when things were either added or subtracted, you would have that, but it's not part of the document itself. Mr. Bowen told us that that was an appropriate thing to do. We also believed that there should be a new introduction, if you will, and that when the documents that were originally published in 1977, both the majority report and the minority report would now become appendices to the document. So the document would be a much cleaner, more user-friendly document. So those are just some of the ideas that that group has not yet finished on. I believe that, and I have a question about one of the names here, because I was told by office staff that all of the names that are on the agenda had sent either an email, they sent an email to the Selectmen's office indicating that they would like to be put on this ad hoc committee, if you will. And there was one member who chose not to ask that, so.
Right. Just as a point of clarification regarding whether selectmen can serve on such committees, on the Charter Review Committee, theoretically, we could have appointed who we wanted at the time. We talked about whether to appoint elected officials or not. In the instance of most committees, the ones that are mandated by state law or the ones that town meeting creates, according to our charter, selectmen are not supposed to serve on those. However, for the committees that we create, and as Selectman Clerk Whiteside described it rather, as an ad hoc committee, we can appoint selectmen, and we have done so in the past. So that's something we have done. I feel strongly that Selectman Whiteside belongs on there, and I would hope that we would all agree on that. But if somebody would like to vote on these people individually, we can do that, or we can vote on them as presented on the agenda and just do it with one motion.
I'm not going to go for this simple reason that we had someone who applied. They were an elected official, and they gave the excuse that at that time, way back, that an elected official could not be on the Charter Review Committee. And of course, we went ahead and we put Peter Dunlop and Robert Fitchmeyer on that committee, who were elected officials.
That's correct.
So now we're going upside down, backwards and forwards. I have no problem Mrs. Whiteside being there as the board's representative, which is what I was before. But as a regular member, voting member, I have a problem. When you put a Board of Select member on a committee like this, it has an undue influence what the board does. And it inhibits a lot of people from actually saying what they feel and what they want to do. So if you want to do it, it's fine, but I will be voting no for Mrs. Whiteside.
Okay.
So, well, may I ask a question?
Yep.
So then what you're saying is that we should not appoint Fitchenmeyer or Dunlop as well?
We already went ahead and made the mistake.
No, because this is now an ad hoc committee.
As an ad hoc committee, we can do whatever you want. All I'm saying is we already set a precedent. We've gone back and forth. There's no consistency to this at all. None.
Mr. Selectman Manise?
We having discussion here? Right?
Excuse me?
We're having discussion here, right?
Yes, we are.
I had questioned that too, because I did not know that a selectman could be on the committee. felt it was, I
Jim,
I felt it
microphone.
was,
He's got it pretty close. I think you're going to have to work on that mic, Bob.
well, I was talking to you instead of talking to, so I didn't know a selectman was going to be appointed to this ad hoc committee. And so it took me by surprise. I was talking with Mrs. Whiteside earlier, and I said, well, you can't be on the committee. She said, yeah, I can. Because I didn't think selectmen was supposed to be members of the committees unless they were set up to be a voting member on the committee, as a committee was, constructed. In addition, I have an email that was sent by Nan Evans to the entire group on 6/25/2020 that says, I am responding to this to include the entire group. I do not want to continue reviewing the charter. Thanks, Nan Evans. That was sent to Marie Garrity, with the CC to Judith Whiteside, Holly Van Ness, Peter Dunlop, Fitchmeyer, Kimberly Shaver-Hood, and Nikki 2259 BOS. That's why we got it. So I think we should amend it to remove her. If you want to keep Mrs. Whiteside on there, we'll just move forward with a vote. Take your,
Thank you, Mr. Muniz. I was unaware of that, and you and I discussed that earlier. I was told by the office staff that all of the people on the list had actually volunteered in writing by email to re-up, and I was not aware of Ms. Evans's thing. It may have gone to the BOS one that I simply don't read.
oh, she does, I'm sorry, I do want, she does.
That's what I thought.
Oh, okay, so she does want to be on.
Yeah, she's actually all members, in my opinion, were very,
no,
thank
no.
you.
The phrasing was odd on
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
I was going to ask if somebody could
That's-
dig it up, because I didn't recall
No,
seeing
that's what I saw, was that everyone wanted
somebody
to.
hadn't, so...
And that Mr. Fitchenmeyer had not yet done it in writing, and Marie asked him to do it in writing, and he then did.
Yeah, the setup was strange on the email, so my eyes went over it the same way. So, yeah.
and thank you. Frankly, I had not even remembered any individual emails, so the fact that you remembered even one is impressive.
I went and looked.
Yeah. Okay, then what we'll do is, Mrs. Whiteside, can you make a motion
I can.
to appoint everybody except number 6 on the list? And then we'll do that one separately.
Okay. I move that we appoint the following members or the following individuals as a charter review group to a term to expire no later than the completion of the 2020 annual fall town meeting. The members would be Nan Evans, Peter Dunlop, Kim Shaverhood, Robert Fitchenmeyer, Holly Van Nest, and Jackie Nichols.
Okay?
Yeah.
And we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second.
that.
Okay, motion by Clerk Whiteside, seconded by Selectman Manise. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Opposed and one abstention, so that's 301, with Selectman Slavin abstaining. Next, could we have a motion to appoint Clerk Whiteside to the Charter Review Group, ad hoc?
I can't do that because I don't believe a selectman should be acting as a voting member on that committee. That was stressed in the regular committee as designed by Mass General Law and also by our charter. And I think it has some merit. And if she would want to be the liaison to that group, I'd have no problem. But I can't make a motion to have her as a voting member where we couldn't do it previous, where they're basically continuing the same function.
Okay, well, absent a motion, there's no action to take.
May I just make a comment?
And, one second. it looks as though we would be divided on the question anyway. So I'll think about it, and perhaps we can bring it back next week if we have a full board. Is there anything you would like to say?
Yes, I hear what both of my peers have said, and I think that there's some merit in what they say. However, in order to be consistent, you should have voted against Mr. Dunlop and Mr. Fitchenmeyer.
Well, no,
No, right now.
no, we're fine. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, and I take that into consideration.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so there's no further appointments or interviews to be had. Licenses and permits. We've
I
got
have
a
a
couple.
question. Why aren't we voting on this anyways? Why are we postponing it until we have 5 members? So you can get a member, 3-2 vote that way? I have a problem with this. It's before the thing gets on the agenda. Should be voted on.
You can make a motion.
I make a motion that we do not appoint Judith Whiteside to this particular group.
Well, there's a motion before us. I don't know if anybody wants to make a second or not. If not, then we're...
I'll second that. It's going to be tight anyhow.
Okay, we have a motion from Selectman Slavin. And what is your motion?
Motion not to appoint Judith Whiteside to the Charter Review Group.
Okay, and a second from Selectman Manise. So a vote in favor of this is to not appoint Selectman Whiteside.
Correct.
All in favor of the motion not to appoint?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed to the motion not to appoint?
Aye.
Aye, so it's 2-2. So,
You can bring it back for anybody who
motion
votes in
fails.
the affirmative.
going forward, licenses and permits, secondhand dealers licenses, we've got a couple.
Yes, we do.
Before we start on that also,
Thank you.
I'd like to have some idea in the next meeting or so, how many people have re-upped the secondhand licenses from a year ago? I've had complaints from the person who put this together, Tom Bickey, that we're not doing our job on this, and that there are people out there that just aren't renewing, et cetera. He's been very unhappy about it for the last 2 years, so I'd like to see where we stand actually.
Yeah, I don't think that's difficult.
I've been discussing with Mr. Muniz some of the questions that I have come up with in terms of paperwork requirements, simply based on what Mr. Muniz has been questioning before. And I actually told him earlier today, and I also told the chairman, that the next target in terms of paperwork review for this board would be, in fact, be the junk dealer's secondhand dealer's license. So I will be reviewing that in the next couple of weeks to make recommendations to the board. I believe that the statement is 100% accurate, that there are businesses that are not complying with the rules. And I believe there's also some new collection bins that are sort of growing around town, and those simply are, the only ones that we licensed previously were the ones on the school's properties. Thank you.
If I can follow on that,
Yep.
if I recall here, maybe we've seen 1 or 2 this spring. And one we just signed tonight, Golden Pond, and he put his paperwork in February. I don't recall very many others coming in front of us, so most of them probably weren't open. I don't know if they have opened at this point in time. I don't know how you'd like to move forward on that if they're not able to transact business or haven't been. So I think we could put some thought into that too, about the actual impact, the financial impact they may be having or not.
I think that's a very fair point. However, the applications are online.
The applications are online.
They're available
Oh,
online.
no, I'm
Yep.
not saying they weren't. I was making the statement that I've only seen 1 or 2 so far this year come in front of us.
And I think
And-
that's, yeah, what
And
Mr.
I
Slavin
don't
was
believe
saying.
anybody was open for a few months. So, I don't think they make a killing in that business. It's probably as much of a passion as anything. I could be mistaken. Maybe I should look into it, but that's all. Sorry.
I will,
I digress.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's a
I
fair-
will
it's a fair
certainly,
point.
I will certainly review the number of re-ups that have been voted on. I believe the date to re-up is January 1st or January 2nd.
No, actually, the date is May 1st on this.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
State law, oddly enough, does not make it the calendar year. They
Okay.
make it
so I will.
year, not even fiscal year
Yeah,
thing.
I will review and bring back full information for Mr. Muniz and Mr. Slavin.
Yep.
Are you willing to take a motion?
Yep, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I move that we grant Not Your Average Antiques of 3086 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, a secondhand dealer license from, it is May 1st, 2020 through April 30th, through 2021. The paperwork appears to be in order.
Okay, we have a motion from Clerk Whiteside. Can we have a second?
Are you going to
Second by Selectman Slavin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
abstained, 400.
I would also make a motion that this board grant a secondhand dealer license to South Shore Generator Service, Inc., of 2696A Cranberry Highway, Wareham, Mass., for the period May 1st, 2020 through April 30th, 2021.
Okay, we have a motion
And I
by
just want
Clerk
to make sure that,
Whiteside.
I'm sorry, there are to be, in this license and the prior license, no articles displayed on any sidewalk
Yep.
or public way.
Actually, I believe the regulation says they have to get express approval to display any items outside, all, period.
Right, but it's also stated as a condition of the license.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion by Clerk Whiteside, seconded by Selectman Slavin. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, 400. Now we jump down to town business. COVID-19 update.
Shouldn't be there.
Town Administrator, do you have anything on this?
No.
No?
Should go.
As far as COVID-19 goes for the public, just so they understand, we're in phase 3, step 1. Step 2 will be coming shortly. As of today's information, there'll be meetings in probably once a month. If something comes up, there might be a change, but it's for all intents and purposes. Phase 4 will not come until there's a vaccine and it's readily available. So we could be looking into October, November, December at the earliest, just so everybody understands that what we have right now, I'm afraid, is going to be the normal. Thank you.
I just would make one comment. May I add to it, Mr. Slavin?
Of course.
I believe that there were 2 additional cases. I look at the statistics on a daily basis that are published, and I believe that there were 2 new cases in Wareham, but Wareham's percentage is a really nice, low
Still low.
percentage, which is great.
Piggybacking, and, if we just continue to do the right thing, and I think we'll all be doing pretty well, just go into the reopenings and slowly and make sure it's going to work and not be in too much of a hurry. I know it's difficult for a lot of businesses and for individuals. People are getting kind of feeling like they're cooped up in cabin fever, but I think it's for the best personally. Thank you.
Get these over to
Alan?
Alan. We already signed this one, so this one will go back to you, Madam Clerk. Those.
Thirty-two employees.
The next one, with the indulgence of the board, we're going to skip over, just by way of background. The item on the agenda says, discussion and vote to waive Board of Selectmen ratification of sub-department head personnel hiring pursuant to Wareham Home Rule Charter, Article 4, Section 4-2B. We have a couple of interesting things that are in our town charter. One says that our town administrator is in charge of day-to-day performance by the town, by the employees, The town administrator manages the employees, disciplines them, and basically acts as a professional manager for the town. In somewhat conflict with that, or perhaps not, depending on your point of view, the charter also says that the selectmen get to approve everybody in town who gets hired to work for the town. And that's what Article 4, Section 4.2b says. It was Selectman Tropiano who noticed a couple of years ago that while we were exercising our rights to ratify, or I don't think we have actually done it, but deny the appointment of somebody at the department head or higher level, we still had those rights for regular employees, non-department head employees. And so he brought it before the board and asked us for a vote to waive our rights under this. The vote requires a unanimous vote because every selectman has a right under the charter to do this. And since we're missing a selectman tonight, we're going to have to come back to it next week.
My question is, since it's in the charter, can we do this, or this has to go to town meeting?
We're allowed, I think, to waive our rights here. I don't think, it doesn't say the selectmen, it's couched, I believe, more in terms of we have the right to do this, not that we shall do this. So,
My understanding was that you were going to actually ask Mr. Bowen about the propriety of that. I don't know whether you had or
he's
not.
sat here through 2 of those votes and has never raised an issue with it. That I do know.
Yeah, I would think if we're actually going to change language or eliminate language that's in the charter, it has to be done at town meeting.
I believe
That's number one, as far as that goes. What's happened before, I remember when I was chair one year, I basically, at that particular committee, at that time, I asked that the board vote not to exercise their right and to allow the town administrator to take care of everything except department heads. And I think we've had votes after that as well. And technically, what we've been doing doesn't really follow what the charter says. I'd rather see the charter cleaned up and get it done, which is part of the charter review group to take care of it finally. Come back in the fall with the correct article.
Yeah, and again, if it's a charter change, then you got to file legislation and wait for the legislature to act and all that fun stuff.
That's correct.
So, but we'll review it next week.
If I may speak to this, all we're doing is reviewing the personnel action, and, it's supposed to be given to us, all personnel actions on hiring is supposed to be given to us in writing and provided so that we can look at, and we'll have an idea what's going on within the town for hires and who they are, and otherwise, basically, we don't know who's been hired or who left, or, and we have, 14 days to act on it, and if
15.
we don't, 15 days to act, and if we don't, then it becomes automatic anyhow, so I personally, it's not that I don't trust their judgment, it's just that I'd like to know what's going on, and that's the only way that, so far, that I would be able to know what changes or who we're hiring in town for what positions. I have no idea otherwise.
Well, I think, if we're talking about simple notification, that's one thing. We can certainly come up with a board policy that requires the town administrator to notify us of every personnel change. I don't think that's something we can do as a policy board.
Even once a month.
Huh?
It's already there, it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
We don't
I
do
mean,
it.
the
It's not us,
concern I
it's-
have with us getting involved potentially, and it doesn't mean that we would, or that this board would, or that anybody on this board would do such a thing, but I think it opens it up to political influence in the hiring process. If we're allowed, or if we actively get involved in having say over whether somebody gets hired for municipal maintenance, I think what you're going to see is as soon as applications go in, we're going to start getting, the phone calls from the uncle or the relative or the this or the that saying, oh, make sure you hire Joe, he's a great guy. And that's something I think we really want to stay out of if we're going to have a professional town administrator who's operating the day-to-day provisions.
I understand what you're saying, and I hope that we would not, and no one on this board would move to influence on the hiring process, and that there is a hiring manual in place on the process in which we follow, and there is a hiring a committee that, for each area that reviews and makes recommendations. You know, being a public employee for 39 years plus, being involved in unions for 20 plus years at a leadership level at the institution, I see, you know, I see a lot of what you're talking about, but it just doesn't come from the chief executive officers or from the town. It comes from everywhere within the town. It permeated everywhere. So, you know, I think using that as an excuse, that political influence, it doesn't cut it for me. Again, it's they're doing all the legwork, and, you know, they have their hiring committees and they have a hiring manual, I would assume. I've never seen it, but I'm assuming they do, and a process that they follow. And a recommendation of who they hired, and I don't know what's wrong with us reviewing it, and if any one of us had a serious consideration or concern, we should voice it. But otherwise, we should just accept it and move forward.
Okay.
I mean, it's just...
Nope, I understand your position. Clerk Whiteside?
Yes, thank you. The Charter Review Committee actually did look at that section very carefully. That was something that we came back to a couple of meetings that we had before we were shut down. And the concern that you have voiced was something that was raised, but it was a majority vote to not change it because of exactly one of the things that has been raised, which is the political interfering, if you will. So
Not change it.
yeah, not changing it. So that's the committee would not be recommending a change in the verbiage at the moment. They chose to accept it as it was, just for information purposes.
Okay. All right, well,
And we're not taking any of the authority of the appointing and the process of selection from the town administrator and the assistant town administrator and whoever else is on the hiring committees. All we're doing is exercising our right and authority to review and have, you know, if we had concern or input, we could say something. Otherwise, it's a done deal.
yeah, well,
All right.
there's no vote tonight anyway, because even in order for it to make it work, it would have to be all 5 of us, and we only have 4, so we'll take it up at another time. Let's see. Discuss and authorize chairman or clerk to execute warrants. This is something that the state, I guess a couple of years ago, allowed us to start doing. You know, it doesn't really matter to me. Makes it a little easier for people if they don't want to have to travel to town hall to do it. On the weeks we're off, on the weeks we're on, it's in our package anyway, so, you know, we come in and we sign it here. So this is what we've done, I think, the past 2 years? So I brought it up for renewal by the board. Your thoughts?
As far as the warrants go for paying the bills and stuff, I'm not comfortable with someone else signing my name. Over the years, there's been things signed with nobody looking. I believe, except for Mr. Manise has come recently, nobody bothers to check the individual items. They just sign off. It's the same problem I had on the school with the minor school, how the building was being signed off with nobody looking at it, until I basically said, I'm not signing unless it's done properly. And in this case here, people may not remember, but back one time, 2 selectmen who were fighting on the school buses turned around and signed off to go ahead and purchase buses illegally without, you know, because they just signed the warrant. So as far as I'm concerned, nobody's signing for me.
Okay.
I thought it was kind of nice when we received the warrants electronically for reviewing. It's tough to sit here. I know, and I come in an hour early and I can barely get through maybe 2 of them. Never mind backup, you know. And I'm learning, you know. And I did some budgetary things at the institution too as part of my duties, and so I'm pretty quick at it, but it's all new. I don't have a problem in this in the sense that if it's a necessity by necessity, that, you know, it has to get done, but I would rather just have that, you know, you have, what do you need, 3 signatures?
Yeah.
So it would be, what are you looking for, just 2 or the singular?
Well, what we've done the past couple of years is the chairman executes on behalf of the board, or in the absence of the chairman, the clerk does it. So it's just one signature.
You're
from
right.
one of the 2 officers, and that's it.
And I know for the most part, I mean, I'm in town, and if we don't receive them, I could show up, and I know Mr. Selectman Slavin is around. He's makes his rounds, and Selectman Whiteside and yourself.
I don't care one way or the other. It's
Yeah.
just I thought it should come to a vote. It was something we've done the past couple of years, and I didn't want to continue it without
Yeah, I understand.
hearing. So, somebody, I don't care one way or the other. If somebody wants to make a motion not to do it, that's fine.
If we take no action, then there's no action.
Yeah, exactly. So if nobody wants to make a motion, then we all continue signing. Okay?
One of the things, may I just suggest, is that the backup documents be scanned, because the time that you're talking about when we had to electronically sign them, there was like 453 pages or something. And
I would say scanning, it's a nightmare then.
yeah, and
You
that's,
guys have to
yeah.
delete them right away then, please.
yeah,
Say what?
You have to delete them right away, please.
Right.
Because otherwise it's taking up all our memory.
right.
Those are massive
You can't
documents.
scan them.
That's a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, these are fairly thin, but sometimes they're this thick.
Yeah, the ones today are
If you want to
huge.
look over
So-
there, it's probably 10 inches high.
It's this.
Sorry. Yes,
You
dear.
know, I'm just, before, one of the reasons why you would allow just the single is if there is some of the emergencies or when people aren't around, when we have others on vacation. What I would say is, and this would just be my recommendation, is you vote to allow it as long as the chairman notifies you, or if people aren't going to be around, but you keep it where you get the information, everybody signs week after week, but you have the authority to be able to do it in the event of an emergency or something, and.
Well, that's what I
don't-
kind of suggested,
Yeah,
but,
so I think it's, because if you're holding up to the everybody needs to be here, I'm going to tell you, there's been times when you haven't, 5 board members.
you only need 3 signatures.
Well, There's been
Correct.
times
I
we've
mean,
been scrapping for 3 on a Thursday, I can tell
Yeah.
you that.
So,
That has happened.
Okay,
and you're correct, it's not 5 signatures, it's been when
It's
there's
3.
not 3 around. So, you know, I think there's following process or the rights, and then there's being progressive about what could happen and mitigating
Mr. Chairman,
headaches.
Yeah.
may I make a motion then?
Yeah, it's
I
on the
would
agenda.
vote to authorize the chairman, or in his absence, the clerk, to execute the warrants in the unusual circumstance that the majority of the board is not able to sign the warrants.
And I think and I'm sorry, you've got a motion out there, but I think at that point, if that's going to happen, it should be scanned to everybody, if that makes sense, so that you have the.
Would you like me to add that to the motion?
In that case, it should be scanned to everybody, just so you know what was out there and what was.
May I amend my motion to,
Yep, it's amended.
thank you.
Okay. Do we have a second for Clerk Whiteside's motion?
Do you want me to try it again?
No, go ahead. Alan, do you want to second that, or you don't?
No, he's not going to vote for it, so.
Yeah, would you just
Repeat it?
restate that?
Sure. I move that the board authorize the chairman, or in his absence, the clerk, to execute warrants when there is
Only, yeah.
no majority of the board available to sign the warrants, with the understanding that if that occasion arises, the documents will be scanned to all members.
So we have a motion, and you're looking for a second.
Yep.
Then we'll have discussion.
Yep.
I will second it for
Okay.
the purpose of discussion.
Yep, okay, we have a second. Discuss away.
Well, we're talking about scanning, right? These are all electronic documents. They're already created in electronic format. So it's basically, and they're already packaged, so they just put them in a folder and send them. It's not like they're sitting at the computer, at the copier and scanning them, okay?
That's, but
These
there's
are
different setups.
electronically created.
I think he has some information about
Go
the
ahead,
process
please.
of producing the documents.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, that's within the Vadar, within those setups, that's done through there. But to take that out, you're then putting it into your email and sending it out.
Right, you attach it and move it over. Hopefully, we have the technology and software to be able to do that. I've also suggested that the selectmen have a drive which we can access.
I know you.
And you know, we should have that ability. I mean, that's 20th century stuff, never mind 21st.
We know.
And, you know, it would just help move things along, so otherwise we're just, you know, it's just more excuses on why we can't.
No, it's
I
not
don't want to say
excuses.
how we can, was it the little
I
train
can
or
tell you
something?
that with our firewalls and such, and with what we've seen with places being held up, having to pay Bitcoin and stuff, the more access we grant from the outside through our firewalls to our internal systems, the more liable we are. And maybe everyone here is a complete saint and will never accidentally click a link on an email or anything else. But we've seen what happens in other communities, 600,000 worth of Bitcoin and such.
So,
We've had to pick up insurance for it. And it's been from Matt, our IT, who I have a lot of faith in, and I don't know anybody who doesn't, saying that we should not do that. There's only a few people that have even Vadar access to the outside. So this isn't, we've even stopped some of the Dropbox. We don't have if you look at what we have for our tech, we have 3 FTEs for that. We can't sit there and combat every single thing.
I'm not debating, you know, how many people you have or anything else. I'm just saying that even if we're working within the intranet, say we log on from a building, we don't have a drive and an access to these things.
You should, within the department, if you access a
What do I
computer
have
in there,
access to?
right over there.
Yeah, I can print over there. You follow what I'm saying? We don't have access to these things
You should have.
unless it's an electronic. I mean, I would like to have electronic access. We could have a shared folder,
You do
even
have
if
one.
it's intranet. Do we have a shared folder? What's it
Yeah.
under? Nobody's ever
EOS.
told me. I don't have the address. I've been here a year and 2 months.
For within the town, when you're on the town's computer or something, you have access.
Do I
to
come in my computer?
for that right there?
I can log on.
No, I can't do it from mine. We don't.
So
you
I
have
have
to
to,
use within the computer, one of the systems, the computers that's set up.
and what do I have access to?
Then you'd have access to the shared data folders. So that would be, licenses or something like that, whatever selectmen scans there are.
I have no idea. I've never been informed. Anybody else know that?
I think I might have been aware of its existence, but I haven't availed myself of it. But I'm a
Yeah,
paper guy,
that's-
so.
Yeah.
What you've ever asked me was for external to get from the outside.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, I think we're getting a little far afield of
no, okay, go ahead.
the issue. We can put this, but it's an item for an agenda in the future, though.
I would
we
like
could
to
talk about
discuss it. I
I don't
mean,
have a problem with that.
even
we
if it's
can we
separate.
can bring Matt in and go over everything and stuff. I'm not looking to fight on these things, obviously, but I'm also not looking to expose the town. And if
I
there's some-
understand that. I understand that.
I know.
I'm not asking it for everybody to have access.
So, all right.
Thank you.
Okay, then. So we have a motion and a second before us. Any further discussion?
All I'm trying to do here is, it's real simple. This board, as constituted of 5 members, only has one person that really works for a living. The rest of the 4 of us, 3 of us are retired, 1 person doesn't really work full-time. There is no reason why 3 out of the 4 of us can't get here in a timely fashion. I've been at this for I'm on my 9th year now, and I find it unacceptable that it can't happen, because I think it's one time that we had an issue because of a storm or something. So I don't want to see us sending stuff electronically all over the place. I have severe concerns about security, et cetera. But at this point here, as this board is constituted, it's really, there's no excuse not to be able to sign.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
2-2, so the motion fails, no action taken. Okay, discussion and vote to revise one-day special alcohol license form.
Thank you. Based on Mr. Maniz's questions and observations of a couple of weeks ago, I took it upon myself to actually look closely at the one-day all alcohol special license. And I found that it was 11 pages long. I also found that it does not really follow the sort of guidance of the state. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts, under Chapter 138, suggests that that the board, the licensing authority, have a 60-day notice for granting of this. In a small town like this with lots of community events from time to time, particularly in the summertime, that may or may not be a reasonable thing. However, as you all saw from what was scanned to you, our current application says, please allow 3 to 4 weeks prior to the event for scheduling on the Selectmen's agenda. I don't believe that that's an appropriate way of stating it, and I certainly don't believe that that's enough time for a completed application to get to all of the places and be available for the Selectmen to review. So I am asking this evening to change the language from please allow 3 to 4 weeks prior to the event for scheduling on the Selectmen's agenda to read, the completed application is due to Selectmen's office no less than 30 days before the event. That's my motion.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
May I just add that I will be bringing the entire document, the entire application document back to this board for review. I'm trying to get it to be less than 11 pages long.
Yep.
That'd be nice.
Okay, we have a motion from Clerk Whiteside, seconded by Selectman Slavin. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, 4-0. Motion carries.
Can I get a copy of that? Was that sent to us?
Yeah, I'll send you another one.
Was it sent to us?
I
Yes.
believe- Yes,
It's
Okay.
in your stuff, Jim.
Okay.
If it's not there, let me know.
I'll send it to you, sir.
Next item, discussion and vote to authorize Director of Planning and Community Development and the Town Administrator to negotiate a marijuana products manufacturer's host community agreement for UCAN Co., 3065 Cranberry Highway, Wareham.
Motion so made.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
The documents are all in order.
Correct.
Okay, we have a motion from Selectman Slavin. And again, this is a motion to authorize a negotiation. It's not a motion to approve a host community agreement. The purpose of the vote is to let the people who have negotiated the other agreements to go ahead and negotiate this one. We are part of the permitting process, so if we don't like the deal they struck or we think there's something in there that needs to be changed, then that's our right to do so before we vote to approve.
This particular application is not a retail license. There is no restrictions on the number of growers or manufacturers. I'll speak a little bit later on Cannabis Control Commission, but we have, I believe, Derek, either 10 or 11 businesses in Wareham. I think we lost one so far, maybe two. I think that lab may be questionable too. And for some reason, the Cannabis Control Commission, and I'll explain a little bit later also, is way behind on final authorizations of licenses, permits, etc. So at this point here, this company looks extremely solvent, and I can't see them having much delays in getting approved.
Yeah, we have 3 retailers, 2 just processing, 3 production facility. These aren't all up and running. These are the licenses. And then 1 testing facility and 1 other testing facility that I think is requesting some changes.
Yeah.
So, What we have up and running that's actually open is one retail, that's
One medical.
Verilife, and then T-Bear Inc., which is a manufacturer, is also open. And they just began not too long ago.
T-Bear, I think, is down underneath that little strip mall.
Yeah, we don't need to tell people where that.
Sure you do. They can't sell it anyways, in theory.
No.
I will second the motion for discussion.
Okay, discuss.
I spent a fair amount of time looking at the profit and loss forecast. And while I believe that lots of people will make lots of money selling the product, I spent 23 years as a banker, commercial lender, and one of the things I learned was projections are just that. On the other hand, I know that we do get financial benefits from signing these agreements or authorizing the signature of these agreements. But I want to make sure that a negotiation is not a done deal until it is approved by this board. And
Well, we are the only authority that can execute a host community agreement. We're not even delegating the execution of the documents at this point. Our signatures go on them. And so, without our signatures, there is no agreement.
Correct.
That's been what we've done with every other company with whom we have entered an agreement. It's first is what happens, like tonight, we vote to authorize the negotiation of the agreement. When we were doing competitive application review, they came back with a ranked scoring system for us, and we agreed that the top 3 that they had selected were also the top 3 that we felt were deserving of the retail licenses. In the instance of manufacturers or growers, there is no cap on the number of those we can have in town. So those didn't go through quite the same ranking process or anything like that. The bottom line is if the people we authorize to negotiate these agreements come back and say, yeah, we can't get anything done, then that's as far as it goes. So, and we have the ultimate say.
I just want the public to understand that this negotiation is not a done deal
Oh, no.
until it is brought before this board. I want
Exactly.
the public to understand that.
Yep.
And
And
just,
they should also realize there's only certain legal things that you can negotiate.
Can't hear you.
There's only certain legal things that you can negotiate.
Correct.
So,
Yep.
the other piece of this also is the Cannabis Control Commission has extremely strict and difficult guidelines for anybody to qualify. In these particular cases where it's not a retail operation, and we're going to be talking about delivery applications pretty soon as well, those are a whole different animal.
yeah.
The way the agriculture works as far as growing while manufacturing is extremely difficult to comply with. It's one of the reasons why it's taking so long.
Yep. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, 400. So, Mr. Town Administrator and Mr. Buckland, if you're listening, go ye forth and negotiate.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Something fun. Selectman Whiteside.
Yes, thank you. 2 weeks ago, this board signed a proclamation for a very worthy citizen of this town, and I would ask that we ratify that signing this evening. Mr. David Mallinson has been a stalwart 2.5-year trash picker on Glen Charlie Road, sometimes as many as 3 or 4 times a day. The board wrote a proclamation which was signed, and Mr. Slavin and members of Don't Trash Wareham, the fire department, and 30 or 40 cars actually had a parade, a surprise parade for Mr. Melanson. He was thrilled. He was very surprised. And I think it's appropriate to recognize citizens who just do because it's the right thing to do. So I would ask that this board authorize the signing of the document, which read, the Board of Selectmen, Wareham, Massachusetts, presents this token of appreciation to David Melanson for his unwavering commitment to the Glen Charlie Neighborhood Trash Incentive. Mr. Melanson is a member of Don't Trash Wareham's Team Shangri-La. He has faithfully cleaned the roadside daily, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, since April of 2018. The certificate is awarded gratefully to an outstanding community volunteer, signed by the Wareham Board of Selectmen. So the motion is to ratify the signatures.
Second. Just for discussion, Don't Trash Wareham, Nora Bickey actually was in front of me in the car parade. We stopped. We didn't get out of the cars. We just handed it to David and his wife. And Mr. Melanson was extremely taken back by all of it. And when I got there to hand him the proclamation, there was tears in the man's eyes. He was extremely appreciative. He doesn't ever ask for anything at all. He doesn't expect anything, and this was something really that the town was not only nice to do, but should have done. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400. And thanks again to Mr. Melanson for his dedication and hard work. Any other business? Anybody have any 48-hour business?
Yeah, something came up. As mostly everybody knows, at least on the board, I think that's here now, the sign bylaw, I actually took a lead on that back around 2010 with the, at that time, the Director of Planning. And we used the Falmouth as a basis for that particular plan, modified it to fit Wareham, et cetera. So obviously I have a fairly keen interest on sign violations, et cetera. A couple of days ago, I think that's maybe this weekend, whatever, there was a sign that came out for the dog paw group, which I have no problem with. Myself and my wife have been strong supporters of a dog park all the way through. But I was concerned about the actual signs going out because I know I hadn't voted on anything or had seen anything. And basically, I sent a note to them just saying, hey, let's be careful here. You have to go before the selectmen to get an okay, so we don't have problems and have any negative results for you. I got back an email saying that our new chair had told them, okay, go ahead, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it. I don't have a problem. What I have a problem with is not being notified that something that's going on. I will not accept that anymore, just so you understand, Peter. You're representing us as a board and saying okay, and I feel like a fool and an idiot when I try to help somebody out, and they tell me that someone's already given them approval.
No, I'm sorry about that. That fell through the cracks when we didn't meet.
It doesn't matter.
Put on it. Well, I make mistakes,
It's not
Alan.
acceptable, Peter.
Everybody's human.
I don't care. It's not
You
acceptable.
don't care if I'm human. Okay, well, we got that on the record. Can we move on? Anybody else have any 48-hour business?
Nah, if it's not an emergency, we shouldn't really address stuff in under
They
48.
can't hear you.
If it's not an emergency, we really shouldn't address things in under 48 hours.
Well, it could have come up in
No,
another portion, so,
You know what I'm saying, though? I mean, a lot of times we often bring it up under 48-hour business, but, we should try to make sure things are planned and put on an agenda item or bring it up under, that's my opinion. If it's not an emergency, if it's something unexpected, that's one thing. Otherwise, I think we use it too often. That's all.
okay,
Well-
fair enough.
Just so you know, Jim, I almost never use it.
No,
I consider this more than
Yeah.
just a regular thing.
and you could have done this under comments, and I'm not
I don't
criticizing
wanna-
you
wanna do it that
for
way.
it. It's just,
Well, it's been said, it's been dealt with, and we'll move on.
nothing with what you said.
Thanks.
This is just something that has been on my mind over the course of the year in how 48 hours, business under 48 hours is used. If we're going to have an agenda, that we should try to set the agenda. And this was more of a discussion. It's not we're taking action. But anything that we're going to take action on or whatever, unless it's an emergency, we shouldn't take it up under 48 hours.
Yeah,
That's all. Thank you.
okay. Anybody else have any 48-hour business? Town administrators report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. good news, we've received a grant from the Mass DOT Shared Street Program. We haven't received the full amount yet, but we're estimating between $35,000 and $40,000 to fix up the alleyway by Merchants Way going all the way down to the old train station. So we can fix it up with some of the safety planters. We can purchase tables and chairs for underneath the old train stations, clean it up, fix the bathrooms, and some security doors and gating around the whole facility as well. And that's because of these the new shared street programs and what they're trying to do to enhance with social distancing and getting different spots that people can be outside dining and sharing them. We're putting an additional grant request in for some of the sidewalks to upgrade in Onset as well. So we'll see how we make out with that one. The only problem is, the one of the stipulations is you basically need to be able to execute this within 15 to 30 days of the grant award. So we haven't received the official award. They've just notified us that we'll get it. And so we're pretty much hustling.
Okay, anything else?
Nope, that's what we did receive, as we know, one of the updates from the MMA, that we're looking for the budget to be set by the Commonwealth to be sometime in October, if we're lucky. Ioana, I really have to thank Moderator Claire Smith, yourselves, the Board of Selectmen, Steve Ruiz, Wareham Community TV, everybody getting involved to host that town meeting. I know there were some people that said there were a bit of naysayers to have it, but having our budget done is that's going to take a lot of anxiety off of us. So, we could see some worse numbers in October. I'm hoping not, but we've at least cleared that first hurdle, and we've got a plan together, if you will.
Yep.
So, I know that the school will be, as you said before, will be working on the different types of approaches to reopening. I did send some information based on seeing some of the numbers, what the additional employee benefits would be. And also looked at, and I think it's unfair for me to speak about it, so they'll be talking about it tomorrow. I believe it'll be recorded, but next week, or I won't be here the following week, but the week thereafter, maybe can give some additional information and advise people what it would mean to this community. So, thank you.
All righty. Liaison initiative reports. Alan?
First off, I'd like to thank the town administrator and his department heads. I constantly send in different grant programs, etc. I think I sent the streetscape thing probably 3 weeks ago, saying we had a very short window. And I have to thank Mr. Buckland as well. He's under an awful lot of duress and stress trying to get everything done. I throw so much stuff at him, I really feel guilty because we don't give him enough time. I actually put a plug in. I think he needs someone else to help him to get all this stuff done. Some of these projects are very difficult to apply for, etc. But it's good to see us taking advantage of stuff as it's being announced. And we're constantly getting announcements every week to 2 weeks now, as the state keeps trying to figure out how to keep everybody alive.
And Mr. Buckland did such a nice job. SERP invited him to
Yes.
talk at their next meeting so other municipalities can know how to put it together.
You can
So,
thank me for that one.
I don't think he's thanking you.
I wouldn't go either. Okay, here we go. I've got a bunch of stuff. I'll do it as quickly as I can. As you know, I was asked to reach out to see if we could find a way to get out of the Boston loop as far as market value, etc. I looked into Brockton and New Bedford just to get some idea. Brockton is actually higher than New Bedford, which kind of surprised me. It has to go through HUD. So I have Representative Keating, his chief aide, Mr. Jackman, and I spoke today again, and we're working trying to figure out how we get through to change this around. I was surprised at how many different communities in our area are still in the Boston zone. We have no idea how it got that way because it doesn't make sense. It's a community like Marion is not, and there's no logic to the actual list of communities. So I'll keep everybody updated as quickly as I can as it comes down the line. It's probably going to take a little while to get this done, but I think we can get it done. I've had a few people get a hold of me about the South Coast Hospital as far as, the emergency room. I've seen a couple little notes of people who don't really listen and know what's going on, saying that the hospital is not going to do anything, and it's a shame we took Toby Homestead down. If anybody's looking today, the actual, what I call construction fencing is going up today, and the work is starting. So please don't continue to set off rumors that are not true.
I think it was a fine point that they would not be disrupting their
Yes.
emergency room during a pandemic.
Yep.
I think that would, but
Yeah,
it
thank you,
made
Derek.
sense to me.
But I just want to make sure people understand it is going. The other thing is the federal government, basically through the Supreme Court, kicked back the Wampanoag Indian, claim for tribal status, which affects the casino for the Southeast Mass, because we still have it done as what they call a Class 1 license, which is a full casino. So at this point here, depending who gets elected president for the coming year, we'll make a decision of whether this goes through or not. So Taunton is still in line for that particular casino if the Indian tribe actually gets recognized as a legitimate tribe. So it will affect the project in Wareham, obviously.
I read the court's decision on that. It was pretty stinging.
It was a hard one. I won't speak about the planning board meeting last night. I think Jim, it's his committee to take care of.
Which is that?
Planning board last night. I was there listening to that as well, but you can handle that one if you want. Cannabis Control Commission. The director, chairman, whatever you want to call it, of the Cannabis Control Commission resigned with everything else going on, which is just wonderful.
Is the
So,
result of the previous meeting?
almost, I think. I've actually had arrangements for Serped for our commission meeting for July, for either one of the commissioners or David Lakeman, the legislative fellow, to come up, through a Zoom presentation and talk to us about the Cannabis Control Commission, and also to answer questions, because we have 27 communities and about half of them have issues about this, as far as licensing, what's happening, et cetera. So they're kind of going in a circle is the best way to put it. Everything has been delayed, and I didn't realize their head person actually resigned. So they're reorganizing as well. Also, there will be new releases from them shortly on the application process and also delivery, which has been put on hold. So it looks like the delivery program is going to be coming as well.
Is that medical or retail? The
Retail.
Yeah.
I think medical is actually allowed already, if I'm not
That's
mistaken.
Yeah, I didn't know if they were opening that up again.
No, it's the other one. I'll go again, a few more things. Everybody got my notes for the MMA directors meeting today. MMA, which is a large organization that basically represents all 351 communities in Massachusetts, their annual convention, which is usually in January, is going to be remote instead of live because of all the restrictions. It's going to cause this particular organization to lose $500,000 in revenue for the year. They have enough money put aside, accepted to be solvent, but it is a problem. They're cutting their budget as well by 10%. As I mentioned before, the government changed the rules for grocery stores. Federal relief bills for aid to states and local communities now look to be insufficient to provide needed funding, possibly coming in August something, but no meaningful stabilization bill from the federal government on the horizon at all. They just can't get together on anything. So we're not going to get any federal aid in the near term that's going to help us at all. State budget is still not done, and as Derek said, we don't expect to get a number until October, which is crazy. For fiscal year 20 is still a work in progress, and they're waiting see what the payments are. There's a bunch of the tax payments will move till July 15th, for everybody to delay paying, and there are other payments also that were delayed until September. So the state has no idea where they are as far as collections for fiscal year 20. They know they're quite a ways behind. The legislature is now going to have to actually do the budget for 2021. The governor will not submit a revised budget, so the House and Senate are going to be the ones that actually do the budget for 2021. So that's going to be more interesting as well. The forecast for revenue is still, I'll use the word gloomy, I think that's what I put in my notes. They're projecting between $6 and now $8 billion shortfall in revenue. And they've got 3 different organizations all in the same ballpark. There's a new municipal bill, I spoke to the assessor, called Clause 18, which it allows the assessors the ability to reduce assessments for people who are having, I won't say catastrophic, but difficulties due to COVID-19 in particular, but it's for individuals only as of right now. I'm a little concerned that if they take this particular bill and modify it, include businesses, it could help our businesses, but also could be a severe hurt to our revenue projections as well.
Yeah, are they saying they're offsetting that with aid like they do with the elderly and the other exemptions, or are they just saying we're allowed to do it?
We'll be allowed to do it, so therefore it puts the onus on the assessors how they handle it. But it's something that we're going to have to watch very closely. Remote participation was also in this bill, PEG programming, information as well. The Senate last night at about 11 o'clock at night passed the police reform bill. It goes to the House next. The biggest issue is what they call qualified immunity.
Yeah.
Derek, you want to talk on that or not?
Well, there's a lot of misnomers on it. People are saying that qualified immunity means that police officers can get away with whatever they want. That is absolutely false.
Yeah.
If they are doing their actions in accordance with their job, in accordance with the law, they are qualified immunity means they will be covered. They'll be represented, they'll be taken care of. They don't have to, unless it's civil case, they don't have to get their own attorneys and such. But the idea that suddenly that our officers are thrown to the wolves, if you are violating civil rights, if you are not following the guidelines, qualified immunity doesn't cover you. It's not necessarily presumptive. So the idea that you're just going to blindly take that away from the officers, I will tell you, I have great concerns about what responses you'll get from the officers in this entire Commonwealth. Because why would you want to be proactive and go at that when every single person can just basically sue you without consequence?
Yep.
So I think they need to look long and hard. They've made some changes, they've looked at other things, but the idea that we would just let our officers not, when you look at not have their backs in one of the hardest jobs, and this goes beyond anything else that's going on now. Let's look at the jobs they have, what they're going through, what they've done through COVID, how they've acted. We have tremendous officers, and I could not imagine doing that to them.
Just so that everybody understands, I actually sent a letter out, not from the board, but from myself personally, and through my other positions with this county and with the MMA board, objecting to this particular bill the way it was written. Also, just so you know, the vote was 20-16, so it was not a huge majority. I think things swing in the wrong direction sometimes, too far left, too far right. The police need to be protected properly, and at the same time not penalized for things that happen in the minority. The next piece, which will be interesting to us and other towns, is a question whether the library board for the state will make waivers available for this year, because so many libraries were closed, etc., as far as what the dollar amounts required to stay certified. So this is something they're looking at, and they're trying to figure it out, if they'll happen or not. I already mentioned about the back-to-school programs. The actual cost will cause financial distress. This is from the state. They know it's going to be a problem. They don't know which one of the 3 programs they're going to end up with, or whether there'll be a thing where you just pick A, B, or C. But the bottom line is, I would not want to be in the school committee or a school superintendent trying to figure out, A, how we're going to open the school up, and 2, how we're going to pay for it. Now, the last piece I have, a couple pieces, the Chapter 90 funding, as I mentioned last week, was taken out of the transportation bond bill, and it was passed by the House and Senate at $200 million after being approved for $300 million. So what's happened is the MMA has supported, which the Transportation Legislative Committee I'm on as well, adding into the actual bond bill, which has not been passed yet, a piece to add back in a certain dollar amount to the bond bill for Chapter 90 funding for over 5 years. And it's actually been filed to add into the bill, and it'd be $300 million for 5 years, and it would also include an inflation factor as well. And we'll see how that goes. We're just not completely sure whether whether we'll get support or not. I would ask this board if they, next time we meet, if they want to look at this or not and see if they want to send a letter of support. We've been getting $200 million for the state. The amount of money the town of Wareham gets is fairly substantial, but it only is probably 50% of the value it was 7 years ago due to inflationary costs of raw materials, especially asphalt, et cetera, and all the new rules that go in when you fix a road with stormwater drains, sidewalks, et cetera. So we've been fighting this, we've been fighting a losing battle all the way along. And what's even worse this year is the money was supposed to be available in April. Well, today is July. The money was just released a couple days ago. I believe Mr. Menard probably got his letter in the last day or so.
We received the letter, and the problem is releasing that all at once this late in the game
It's too
makes
late.
us all fighting for the same resources. You know, we put out our Chapter 90, our road, our asphalt and stuff laid in place, and 3-year contracts, but you're still fighting to get in line from some of the other ones.
Yeah, we're in the worst position possible for leverage of getting, decent contracts and prices. So that's what happened there. They played games, and again, the cities and towns take the hit. As I mentioned, the governor, basically reversed his executive order on plastic bans, which means any town or city that has a ban in place, was put on hold, is back in place again. And the other thing, of course, is people can use reusable bags again, which they couldn't do before. There's a new law signed for mail-in voting that we've been told about. There's an issue there, is that obviously the state has questioned from the Secretariat how they're going to pay for this. And now they're saying that the CARES Act money, which we thought we could use for it, is in question whether it can be used enough for this. So it might put the mail-in voting in jeopardy. Cannabis Control Commission, as I mentioned, there'll be new, from the existing regulations, there'll be new updates coming for applications and for delivery in particular. And the LGAC meetings that we normally do every week with the Lieutenant Governor are going on a monthly basis instead of every week or every 2 weeks, because they don't expect any real changes at all in the Phase 3. And obviously Phase 4 is in the severe future. And that's it for this week, guys.
Okay, Selectman Whiteside?
Yep. When do you have spare time, sir?
I'm going to go to the bathroom.
A couple of weeks ago, you gentlemen appointed me to the Wareham Redevelopment Authority.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I thought you were my friend. But anyway, I want to say that Mr. Richard Swenson, who is a member of that committee, has spent an enormous amount of time bringing me up to speed. I'm not sure everybody knows who he is. He's a gentleman who retired and who is volunteering his time for the town. Without his help, I wouldn't be as current as I am in terms of what is going on, what has gone on, and the plans for the future or the hopes for the future. So I just publicly would like to thank Mr. Swenson for holding my hand and guiding me through.
I'd like to make a comment also for Mr. Swenson. He's been banging away at the planning board. He recently got appointed as a full member. He pushed through very hard the master plan, and he's extremely frustrated because things, unfortunately, in the world of municipality go so slow, and the cooperation a lot of times is difficult, that I hope we don't burn him out and lose him.
He is hosting 2 meetings next week.
And the week after,
The
yeah.
17th and the 21st, am I correct?
I believe that's what it is.
One of them is during the day and one of them is in the evening, and the meeting is really to get citizens' input for some plans for I would call it the downtown corridor.
For the redevelopment authority,
Yes.
Yeah,
right, for the Wareham Village,
yeah, yes.
right.
And in terms of preparation, in terms of documentation, in terms of show and tell stuff, he is really good.
Yes, he is. And we're lucky to have people like himself and all the other people who volunteer on the boards. And Rich is very good at presentations. That's his forte, I think.
Yep.
Up
Anything
to
else?
you.
I'm all set.
You all set? Jim?
Let's see. Well, we had an Affordable Housing Trust meeting today, which was good. Reorganized the board, and they were nice enough to make me chair. And Sandy Cormier is going to be the clerk. And Sandy Slavin wanted to step back a little bit and will guide us through. And we appreciate all the work and effort that she's done. And she has like a piece of, she saved like everything since she's been on that board. She said, I have that somewhere. She's digging all the time. So I want to thank her and thank everybody on the board. We had a full meeting. It was good. And afterwards, I went down and saw Ken about some things while it was fresh on the lists. And we spoke about some things we had discussed at the meeting. And then we shift over to, just as we were talking about that, we got the committee list, what was it, sent to us this past week? And I saw that there are liaisons on committees where there were selectmen serving.
Yeah, which made no sense to me. I
Well,
noticed that, for example, with community events, we've got a selectman on it. Why do
And
we need a
with me.
liaison?
And then the only one that didn't have one is the redevelopment authority.
Yeah.
So I just didn't know if you would, I didn't know why that was there, so I'm glad, I just wanted to
Yeah, that was
mention.
just, I think that was just some, in terms of,
By
and I
whom?
was actually the liaison to the Community Events Committee, which, I mean, why would anybody come to me to find out what was going on when you got a selectman sitting there? It doesn't
I
make any
just
sense.
don't know where it came from.
Yeah, I think it was just one of those things where somebody went through a list and tagged everybody on there and didn't consider the makeup of certain committees and did consider the makeup of other committees, and so it's a little bit of a mishmash. That'll be straightened out next week.
I figured it would, I just figured
Oh, yeah.
I'd bring it up before.
Yeah, I caught that because I actually asked Cassie to send out the list to me so I could take a look-see at it.
Yeah.
And first thing I saw was community events, Alan Slavin member, Peter Teitelbaum liaison. I was like, what? What?
Yeah, so, I mean, if you want to do that, it's all right, it's just, it was new to me. So planning board, they had the meeting, nice meeting. And I will say, I think they're kind of hurting in numbers. The associate member can only vote on certain things. So basically, they had a minimal board, and hopefully things can get rectified, and we can get the board back on track, member-wise, and we need to look into that, and we can talk about that.
Yeah, one of the interesting things is I know for the Zoning Board of Appeals that in the absence of a regular member, I believe an associate could step up and vote, but I don't think that applies to the planning board,
Only certain things.
Yeah, only like one thing, right?
which is,
Special permit, is it? Or is it, yeah. Only?
which is strange to me because, both boards vote on land use matters. Both boards have similar, if not concurrent jurisdiction, so why is ZBA allowed to freewheel it with an associate and planning board is very limited, so,
Mass general law.
Yeah.
yeah, well,
So, there was a number of items talked about, brought up. And the hot topic, of course, was the Borrego Solar. And there's some concern throughout the state on these large solar arrays. More people voiced opinions against than for, not against photovoltaic arrays for production of electricity, but utilizing large tracts of land to achieve that. And the mindset of not utilizing areas which would already be cleared, parking lots, new buildings going up, to achieve the goal of solar efficiency and energy. And so it's a discussion. Borrego was very open and to the comments, and so hopefully we can move forward in a positive manner on that. And that's up to the planning board. And
Yeah, Mr., do you mind if I?
no, go ahead,
One thing
please do.
The one thing I always keep in the back of my mind, of course, is the value to the community without the impacts, because some of these could be housing developments in in the future. So people need to realize not all of them would potentially stay forested land. So if some of these, I look at that, the solar projects are, let's take the trees out of it, are for a community like us, the biggest return on investment, because those projects right there, looking at the megawatts, could yield us annually $650,000 with, I
Which
say
is-
no impact, I mean no service impacts, if you will.
Right,
I'm not
right.
debating about trees or anything like that. So that's just when I think about it, and I look, if something like this were not to happen, then what would happen with that land? And I think sometimes people forget they would not always stay.
And what, I mean, I know what you're saying, so what are these contracts generally for, 20, 25 years or something?
Yeah, so it gets brought in there, so you have 20, 25 years,
Yeah.
there's a decommissioning bond, and what happens thereafter.
And then you can put whatever else want on it once you decommission it and tear it down.
Yeah.
And,
so-
and you're only building so many houses right now. I
Yeah.
mean, so it's a great income source, don't get me wrong. It's just philosophically where people lie on, how could we better do this to achieve the same end result? You can't save everything. People have a right to develop their land.
Yeah.
I was just making a statement that was a hot topic there. The new member, Mr. Motto, who's an associate, he brought up some good points. I think he's going to be a good addition to that board.
Good.
And Richard, he's, as you said, he's very organized, and I'm glad to have seen him move up to a full member. I think it's going to be a good thing for the board. And I guess that's about it for me. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have anything with regard to liaising. I did just get a text from Representative Gifford, and she said that the Senate vote on the policing bill was actually 30-7 with 3 senators voting present. So that's not 20-16. So
That's what we got today from the MMA.
yeah, but she's giving different information on the Senate vote. So again, 30-7 with 3 present. So I just figured I'd get that out there. I don't really have anything liaison report-wise to offer myself. Consent agenda?
Yes, on the consent agenda, we have to authorize the payment to the law office of Richard Bowen, the approval of minutes,
Or
meeting minutes, June 23rd, 2020, and June 30th, 2020. Also, the authorization to sign bills and documents.
Is that a motion?
It is.
Second.
Can we have a second to execute these things? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained, 400. Okay, I guess that brings us to the last thing.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn. Who's?
Second.
Okay, I was afraid you people were having too much fun. Motion to adjourn by Selectman Slavin, seconded by Clerk Whiteside. All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400. Good night, Wareham.
Thank you.